Hey everyone, Nick here. Today I'm going to be building a modified version of the Hunter's Knife from Destiny. My brother's a huge fan, so I'm going to be making this for his birthday. Now to start off, I came up with this design. I had to modify some pictures that I found and made it a little narrower to fit onto the 2.5-inch wide leaf spring I'm using. So I take the pattern to the leaf spring and mark it out at 17 inches long. Then I go over to the angle grinder and use a cutoff disc to cut it to length. The leaf spring I'm using is a little more than 1/4 inch thick, so this knife is going to be really heavy even though I've made it a little narrower than the in-game version. Now that I've cut the piece I'm using, you can see that it's not straight. So what we're going to do now is put it in the forge. We're just going to flatten it up. I start up the forge, let it come up to temperature, and then I put my piece of steel in, and I leave it there until it gets to be an orange to almost yellow color. So something happened to my camera when I was trying to film this next part, and it didn't record any of it. So here you can see I'm finishing up straightening and doing the second half, but I really wish you guys could have seen the first part, as it really went from that curved shape and it flattened out beautifully. After straightening, I normalized the blank a few times and then just left it in my forge to cool down. Next, I traced my pattern onto the steel with some soapstone so that I have something to work with. Now my brother's a really big guy, so I'm making the finger holes a little bit bigger so that they'll fit his hands. So it's going to be a little different than the in-game knife in that respect too. There are lots of ways to cut the finger holes. One way would be to use a hole saw, but what I'm doing here is drilling a sequence of small 1/8 inch holes, and then I'm going to be cutting them out. So once I've cut out the pattern with the smaller drill bit, I use a 3/8 inch drill bit to make a larger hole so I can fit the saw blade through. Once that hole's drilled, I put the blade through and start cutting. Now this is pretty tedious work, and it took about 20 minutes for me to cut all of the holes in the knife, both the handle holes and the hole in the blade. Then I took a round file and started knocking down all the high spots. And once I've finished that, I smoothed it out with a half round file and then started working on rounding and beveling the inside of the grip so that it's nice and easy to hold on to. Once I roughed those in, I used a drum sander to really smooth it out and finish it up. So here's the knife. Now we can start working on cutting the outline of the knife and cleaning it up. So I go back to the angle grinder with a cutoff wheel, and I'm just cutting all the excess metal away. So the tip is straightforward, and then I start cutting the gut hook. I just cut fairly close to the outline. Later on I'll come back and finish it up with the grinding wheel. For the handles, I make a series of slits going down to the outline. That way, instead of trying to take all the material off at once because the blade won't bend, I can get into the more complex corners easily. And once I've cut the front of the handle out, I go and do the same thing to the back. Once everything's cut, I move to the grinding wheel and clean up the handle. Now I come back to the spine of the knife, flatten everything out, and then I start working on the gut hook. I'm just opening it up and then also adding a bevel to the back of the knife. It's not going to be a major bevel, just something that's subtle, and it kind of flows with the sharpened edge of the gut hook. So now I go back to the handle and I'm adding a bevel to the outside, just like the bevel on the inside of the handle. I want everything to be nice and smooth so that when you're holding on to it, it doesn't bite into your hand. Even though this is going to be wrapped, the wrap is pretty crude, and there are some places where the underlying metal is going to be exposed. When I'm trying to grind something that's rounded or has rounded edges, I make sure to be very light and just barely touch the grinder to it. You don't want to dig in and cause any divots or really flatten any place out. So once I've done the handle, I just start roughing in my edge bevels, and I'm just going on each side, and I'm just trying to get about a 1/2 inch wide bevel and just have both sides meet in the middle. Really straightforward. So once everything looks good and both bevels are even, I start rough sanding everything. Just using a 120 grit flap sanding wheel, I make sure to finish up the handle, and I'm also finishing up the blade. Now, I did pretty much all the shaping I needed to do with the grinder, so this is just giving everything a nice even scratch pattern. Then I go back over the whole knife with a wire brush just to smooth everything out, and also helps to blend the lines, and it removes some of the scale on the knife. I take it back to my forge and I bring it up to the critical temperature. Now it took quite a while to get this up to temperature because I'm working with a lot of steel here. But once I got it up to non-magnetic, I took it just a little bit further and then dunked it into a container of oil. Now I'm just using canola oil for this. You can see that I got some hardening on the edge, so I'm pretty happy with it. Then I take it and I put it in my oven at 400 degrees for about an hour until the edges are a straw color. Then I take it back to the wire wheel, and I've sped up the video so you can see just how much of a transformation this is. It just really blends all the colors, and it gives it that sort of distressed look that you see in the game. So here it is. I went ahead, used some gutted paracord to make a very disorganized and very rough looking wrap. After finishing the wrap, I used just a dab of super glue to make sure that the ends don't come apart. And here's the knife all finished up. If you have any suggestions for other things you'd like to see me make, please let me know in the comments below. And if you liked this video, be sure to check out my channel for more, and check out the links below for some of the books I've written. So here it is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.